Israel's ongoing genocidal year-long massacre in Gaza, and now a savage assault on Lebanon, has triggered a terrifying escalation of conflict and violence that threatens to engulf the entire Middle East. It's worth saying that the state that is guilty of this massacre in Gaza, that is attacking Lebanon, has nuclear weapons and refused ever to sign the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. This is a state for whom no atrocity it's unwilling to commit. No butchery or massacre it's not willing to perpetrate. No red line it is not willing to cross, and they have nuclear weapons. And they don't believe in international efforts to contain the proliferation of them. So this is a scary situation. There are 379 Irish troops there. There are, I believe, over 100 Irish citizens. But equally important, we have had more than 1,000 Lebanese, and the count is going up, butchered with missiles, children, men, women and children. We have had a sort of James Bond-like explosion of thousands of pagers, indiscriminately killing dozens and dozens of people, injuring hundreds. And we now have 41,689 people killed in Gaza over the last year since Israel began this onslaught. 60 people in Gaza killed last night. More than 200 Lebanese people killed in the last few days. And this is a country that has now, the ICJ has ruled, is guilty of illegal occupation of Gaza, of the West Bank, of East Jerusalem. It is, by its own admission, committing things that are crimes under international law, that are war crimes. Now, the question I have is, what are you and the world going to do about it? And in particular, is your government speaking out of both sides of its mouth on this issue when you say you're concerned about what Israel is doing, about the crimes it is committing, but then we get a report that the Minister, Pascal Donoghue, had a conversation with the Israelis back in 2019, giving assurances that the Occupied Territories Bill, which you still refuse to pass. No. Oh, well, we'll see, we'll see. But why do you still refuse to pass the Occupied Territories Bill? Why do you not ban all overflights of weapons being carried by Israel, which you denied was happening, now we know were happening in Irish airspace, or flights carrying weapons through Shannon Airport? Why do you refuse ever to condemn the United States for continuing to provide the missiles and weapons that Israel is using in Lebanon, has used against the people of Gaza? Why do you continue to allow the US military to use Shannon when they are up to their necks in the crimes that Israel is committing in Gaza, in Lebanon, and now threatening to escalate into an all-out regional war?
Taoiseach, please.
Ken Corla, last week I was at the United Nations and I met the President of the Palestinian Authority, President Abbas. I met the Prime Minister of the Palestinian government. And both the President and the Prime Minister of Palestine thanked me, thanked our government and thanked the people of Ireland for what we are doing in relation to Palestine. You come back here and you come into this Dáil, and the distortion of what the government does is actually breathtaking in terms of how you distort the record of this government. Breathtaking. President Abbas thanks the government of Ireland and the people of Ireland for our position. And you come in here and you constantly endeavour to misrepresent it. The government's position is clear and the people of Ireland's position is clear in relation to the humanitarian catastrophe that's happening in Gaza. We're very clear in relation to the breaches of international law. We're very clear in relation to the ICJ ruling. We're very clear in relation to the actions we took arising from the ICJ rulings in relation to defence equipment. So please don't attempt to misrepresent the government of the people of Ireland in terms of our position in relation to this, because the President of the Palestinian Authority understands it, and quite frankly, what he thinks on our record in Palestine matters to me a hell of a lot more than how you wish to misrepresent our record as well. I note in your comments you didn't, or at least I don't think you did, I missed it if you did, you didn't condemn Iran. and you didn't condemn what happened last night. A civilian is a civilian is a civilian. International law is international law. You can't just pick and choose. If I like this country, if I don't like this country. What Iran did last night should be condemned by you when you rise to your feet. It should be condemned by this House, Kim Corley, because we condemn other acts of aggression on a regular basis. Presumably we wish to apply international law regardless of the country and your kind of political stance on an issue. What Iran did last night was a despicable act that should be condemned by all. Had the Air Dome failed, you'd be dealing with mass civilian deaths in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem. Yes, like that, exactly right, Deputy MacDonald. I hope you'll condemn Iran too, because you're exactly right. Sorry, hold your horses. I condemn the actions of the government of Israel in the incursion of Lebanon and what they're doing in Gaza on a daily basis. The difference between you and me is I'm consistent. I believe breaches of international law are wrong no matter who carries them out. You believe they're wrong if it suits your political agenda. What would you think? What would you have said if those Iranian missiles had landed last night? What would you have done? Engaged in a bit of whataboutery? What Iran has done last night is dangerous and should be condemned. What Israel has done in relation to Lebanon should be condemned. I'm clear on that. It's an incursion in breach of the UN Charter. But it's really easy when you apply international law consistently. Now, we're very worried about this because you're quite right. We have a significant number of peacekeepers whom I've been in contact with on the ground in Lebanon. I met the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, specifically on this issue, and I spoke to the Lebanese Prime Minister directly on this matter last night. I can assure the House, because I'm sure this is to the fore of your mind, and it certainly is to mine, that the safety of those troops is the absolute paramount concern for this government and for the people of Ireland, that we've been assured of their safety and have a contingency plan in place for all eventualities, and we continue to monitor that closely. We believe very clearly there needs to be de-escalation, there needs to be full implementation of the UN Security Council resolution, and there needs to be an immediate ceasefire. And that's the position we say in public and private, regardless of who breaks international law.
Now, Deputy Boyd Barrett, please.
Taoiseach, I'm not in favour of military escalation of this by any side. But what I'm not going to do is engage in on the one hand, on the other hand, right? No, I'm not. You see, somebody is responsible for all of this. Somebody is responsible for all of this. And I'll tell you who's responsible. The State of Israel that invaded Lebanon in 1982, invaded it in 1996, invaded it in 2006, and invaded it again in 2024. Do you remember about Shatila and Sabra, when they collaborated with the Christian Phalange to kill hundreds of people in Palestinian refugee camps in 1982? Or the decades-long ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, an illegal occupation, now under international law, the illegal occupation of Gaza, the 17-year-long siege of Gaza, which is a war crime. These are the roots of the conflict, and we can condemn all we like unless we say that is the problem, and this is a rogue state guilty of these criminal actions. And I'll tell you who you never, ever condemn is the United States for giving them the weapons to carry out these crimes, or its complicity in those crimes, in giving it impunity for genocide, for legal occupation, for apartheid. I just finished by saying there's a demonstration, 1 o'clock this Saturday, a national demonstration in solidarity with Palestine, and believe me, they're very critical of this government.
And when the National Chamber is reduced to some sort of community notice board, it tells you all. While you're continuing to misrepresent the position of this government, we're actually trying to do things. We're actually trying to do things like keep our troops safe, like work with the international community to keep them safe, like speak directly to the Lebanese Prime Minister. I don't know, sorry, can you just have a little bit of respect for the process here? This is quite a serious issue, it doesn't involve shouting and roaring. Yeah, so when you speak to the Lebanese Prime...
Deputy.
Because of the legal advice. But like, I don't know, can I just have a minute to answer the question?
Please.
Because it's a serious matter and I'm trying to give it the serious answer that it deserves. The reality of the situation is we're engaging on a very, very, very frequent basis, often on an hourly basis, in relation to these matters. We're providing increased humanitarian aid. We speak up and speak out in relation to our position on a constant basis. I have said consistently that I believe what's happening in Gaza is a war on children. It's a war on children. It is a humanitarian catastrophe, and the EU is not doing enough. The US has not been effective in bringing about the ceasefire, and we have a situation where I believe the US and the EU desperately want a ceasefire, but the levers that have been pulled have been ineffective to date. It hasn't brought it about, and that's what people will ultimately be judged on. I'm very clear on this, but I can stand up and I can condemn the Iranian attacks, and you won't condemn Iran, and I don't understand why you won't do that. And I don't understand because you don't believe that the state. You don't believe the state. Sorry, I'd like to speak. I believe the state of Israel, alongside the state of Palestine, both have a right to live in security and peace. The problem is you don't believe that about the state of Israel.
Thank you.
You don't
Thank you. Please. If